Sorry, I'm going to try and get it on. I'll get my here in just a second. Guys, okay. So I kind of had a couple different things, and the way that, I don't know, I just feel like we'll go for tonight is we're going to be in 2 Samuel 15 is where 15:16 is where it begins. 15:16 is where it begins, and then Psalms 3. Okay? So we've been on 51, and there are some things I want to come back and hit on 51 eventually. Okay? But at this moment, at this time, turn it on. It's, oh, I guess I turned it back off. My bad. It's like I hit the button, and I seen green, and I must have held it for too long and turned it right back off. All right, guys. So, okay, all you troublemakers on the back row, I'm going to have to split you all up. Come on. Make you all have to sit in separate spots and everything. I deal with this all day long. I know you keep on blaming Rudy. He's the #1 culprit all day long, too. Guys, Psalms 3 is what we're going to be. Psalms 3 is a very, very short psalm, okay? But Psalm, going back to 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 16 is really takes off. Actually, just right before that. It's verse 13. Basically, what happens right here is where 2 Samuel, in 2 Samuel 15, 13 is where it begins to go into what took place with Saul's son, who comes and tries to overthrow David. And so it is Absalom, his son, who has risen up. So you remember, guys, kind of the story of events there with Absalom, right? You guys remember all the different details with that, right? There was the thing with, I forget his name. Oh, my goodness. Ammon and Tamar. Ammon and Tamar. And Ammon rapes Tamar, if you remember. Tamar, walking it by faith really all the way through it, including even the act of whatever had taken place. The whole entire time she just said, man, let's just do it God's way. If this is what, you want. Didn't seem like she was necessarily in that sense of resistance, but she was just like, man, let's do it God's way. So let's go get married. Let's go before the king. Let's go do it the right way before God. And then, yeah, okay. So then it doesn't happen that way. And he takes her. Then she still comes back to him, and she's like, listen, man, let's just go to Dad, and he'll fix it. Yeah, let's just go tell him what happened, and he'll take care of it. He'll get us married, and everything will be okay. And instead, his hatred grows towards her. He throws her out, and at that point, according to their culture, she's pretty much done, guys. I mean, she has no ability at that point for the way that it took place. She's considered defiled, and there's just a lot of different things within that culture at that point in which it really left her it would have left her destitute. But Absalom is the one who actually takes her in. Her brother Absalom takes her in. Some time goes by. It was a few years had gone by, and there was the time of shearing of the sheep. Absalom invites everybody out to this location to have this big gigantic party because of, it was a good year, just put it that way. And so he wanted to have this party, which is customary. In that, he invites everybody out. David says no, he can't go. That him, Ammon, and a few others, they had certain responsibilities. He begs. Finally, David says it's okay for everybody else to go, but I'm going to stay back behind. They all go out there, and Absalom kills Ammon, and he'd been planning this for quite some time. And with that, David, his grief, everything else, Absalom runs and hides in another place. It was actually his mother's father, so his grandpa, ran off over there and hid there for a period of time. David knew exactly where he was at. I mean, if David wanted vengeance, David would have been able to have it. Don't think that in that hiding that's really what it was. It was, nonetheless, David doesn't have a lot of contact with him, and Absalom, some years later, comes back. Okay, David gets him back, invites him back, everything else, has a conversation with him. Absalom, this whole entire time, though, and it's very, very evident that he'd been working. And as soon as he comes back, if you remember, he gets so many chariots and so many, and I forget what they were called, but basically they were those who would go before him, telling everybody, here comes Absalom, son of the king. Here comes, and getting his name in front of people trying to push politically kind of in people, and he would go and sit at the gate. And he would sit at the gate when people would come in to go see David, and he would tell them that David was unavailable, but that if he was king, he would hear them. And whatever issues that they were going through, he would take care of it if he was king, but he's not king, and David doesn't want anything because they're not that important to David. All right? Which all of us know of David. Now, as far as I don't know. I don't know how David necessarily was with every single problem and issue and every single, stub toe or this or that or the other. Okay? Every piece of argument. But one thing that we do know about David was what he always was about, except for that one moment in which 51 that we just read was about, there where he kind of stepped back away, or did kind of, sort of. He did step back away from the Lord. At this point, restored. What we know is that what David was always about all those other times was always about bringing God to everybody. Yeah? His instruction, his word, his love, and that's what he always promoted. It didn't matter what anybody else thought, including his own children. Because technically when Ammon had done that to Tamar, by law, what did David have the right to do? Kill him. When Absalom did what he did, what did David by law have the right to do? Kill him. Why does he have mercy? Why does he have grace on his sons? It's not because his sons deserve it. He loved them, and what did he want for them? He wanted them to reach heaven. And is that where they were at in that moment? But what is always David's hope was, is that as long as they were here, there was hope for them to be saved. If you remember, so Absalom ends up coming in. He does take over. With that, there were many who joined him. Some of David's chief advisors, one of them in particularly, he was a prophet, is what he was. I mean, anything that he said, that's the way it happened. And God had given him a wonderful ability in that. And David had used this man for many, many years, and this guy turns for Absalom to take over. Okay? And there was quite a few of them, if you remember. There was quite a few that supported that effort. Okay? So David takes off. He's leaving because he knows what's happening. He knows what's coming. So he takes off, and a bunch of those went with him. If you remember, there was a certain gentleman who runs out there and curses them and says all kinds of things about him. And the sons of Uriah just said, hey, listen, let us just go over there and take off his head, and then we won't have to listen to this no more. And David's like, oh my gosh, again, what do I have to deal with you? He's like, man, if God put it in his heart to speak all this manner of evil, then so be it. He said, because maybe God will turn around and look at this and turn around and bless me. So in the moment, I might have to put up with this, but in the end, God will just use it for a blessing. David just kind of walks the walk, guys. He gets out there. He demands that his son not be killed. And so I'm kind of pushing a little bit further than probably what the Psalm in that sense really addresses. But David insists that Absalom not be killed. And again, guys, the only reason why he would do that is out of hopes that Absalom would be saved if he was still yet alive. Okay? Now, on the flip side of this, guys, is he was very... he was a deceiver of deceivers. And his whole entire thing was about dividing Absalom, I'm talking about. And so when Joab does find out that he was hung up in that tree by his own hair, he goes over there and gets it. Okay? And in many, many ways, guys, there were certain things there with Joab that Joab definitely did do that, honestly, he should not have done. Remember, there's many, many of those that he killed that he should never lay hands on. Right? Absalom, I'm not sure how that all shakes out. It's not dealt with directly. We know that David was just completely distraught over the death, and he was like that with everyone. It wasn't just that one, it was everyone. Yeah? And again, he just always desired that salvation to take place. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, guys, and just to kind of point that out. So, Psalms chapter 3. So we'll read through it and then kind of come back. So he says, Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. How many are they who rise up against me? Or many are they, sorry. I apologize, I'm tired. Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. Many are they who rise up against me. Many are they who say of me, quote unquote, there is no help for him in God. Salah. So stop, pause, and think about this. Let me repeat it again. Really think about what's being said here. How they have increased who try to trouble me. Many are they who rise up against me. Many are they who say that there is no help even from God. No help for him from God. Think about it. But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and the one who lifts up my head. I cried to the Lord with my voice, and he heard me from his holy hill, Salah. Think about it. They've increased those who bring trouble. Many are they who rise up against. Many are they who say that the Lord will not help him. But God, you are my shield, my glory, the one who lifts up my head. I cried out to you, to the Lord, with my voice, and he heard me on his holy hill. Think about it. They say, and they're doing. God is doing, and God says. Think about it. Think about the contrast between those two. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of even 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you have struck all my enemies on the cheekbone, and you have broken out the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs to you, to the Lord. Your blessing is upon your people. Salam. Think about it. How they have increased who trouble me. Who all is troubling David? You know, guys, I mean, he's got his own child. He has his advisors. He had a couple of the prophets that turned. You have people. I mean, he lists there tens, or he already say tens of thousands, right? And it was thousands, plural. Yeah? That have all turned against. They try to trouble. What is trouble? Okay? To molest, stop the peace, is that what you said? The opposite of peace. Okay? What is the trouble? Have you ever heard there's a song about troubled water? Troubled water?
Elliot Jackson.
What happens? All of a sudden, there's this movement, yes? So everything's going and flowing. And then something that troubles it causes it to move in a way that it wasn't naturally. It wasn't the way that it was supposed to. Yeah? So how are we all supposed to be living day in and day out? I don't know if that's probably way too broad of a statement, or question, but how should we be living day in and day out? Happy in the Lord. What did you say? Godly. You'd have to be in my first morning Sunday school class in order to catch the meaning of that one there. But godly. Okay, no. Okay, so not so much like, I'm just talking about just like how you should be going through your day. Okay, yeah, you say peaceful, but what do you mean? See, guys, I mean, we say these words, but what does it really like? What does it really mean? I mean, guys, you think about it, like, I mean, you got to wake up in the morning. Why are you waking up in the morning? Okay, well, guys, how it should be, you should wake up because, and you know what, and you should be jumping to your feet, to be honest with you, because that's God's day. And He's allowed you to be in it. There should be excitement about rising the next day. Yes? Oh, job to go work? Man, it should be thanksgiving to God for that job to go work. Praise and honor to God for that, for the ability to do it, to try to be better at it for His sake. Because how good was He to you?
Very good.
Yeah? You know, guys, issues, problems, shouldn't even be a worry. Because every issue or problem, who has them? God's got them. Who's the creator of all things? Guys, you know, I mean, we should walk through the day confident. Yeah? Of God's wrath? No, of His mercies, of Him not giving us what we deserve. Because He has saved us, yeah? So we should walk around confident and, I mean, again, I don't know, I've been stumbling over this word here. Not necessarily proud in ourselves, but man, I mean, our God is God. Proud of Him. Yeah? Loving Him. And then guess what? Everything is constantly trying to do to that. Try to make it, oh, wait, oh my gosh. Yeah? Well, Jesus died for all the sins. Oh, wait a minute. There's mine, and there's theirs, and there's this. God's got this day. Oh, my gosh. There's all these things that are happening this day. I've got all these issues. God's the one over it. Oh, God, I haven't overcome. I've got all these things. Worries, stresses, so forth, and so on. What does God say about worries? Okay, one, let's cast your cares, is what He says. So your cares upon Him, for He cares for you, but you have to believe that He's caring for you in order to be able to actually do the action. What He says about worries is He says, don't. Because you know what we're always worrying about? We're worried about stuff that we don't even know what's happening. It hasn't happened yet. And we're worried about it. I do this all the time. And God says, don't. Thank God for Jesus. But no, I mean, a lot of times, guys, it's kind of like fear. What do we fear? The unknown. You know, 90% of the time, what are we worried about? The unknown. It's all nothing. We're worried about what we don't know. Who's the one who does know what's going to happen? And who's got it? So where should our heart and our mind be? But you realize how all the things, the issues, they're always trying to trouble that? Always trying to make a ripple in it? And if there's a ripple, guys, it becomes uneasy. Yeah? Confidence starts to be lost. And if there's waves that start happening, I don't care how big of a boat you're in, when big waves start coming, you're kind of like, wait a minute, I hope this boat's good. You ever been on the ocean? You know what I'm talking about. I got the pleasure of going to cruise lining. There was a few moments that I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I hope this thing's good. Hope there are no icebergs out there. Sorry, okay. Always trying to trouble. And how they have increased. How they've increased those who try to trouble. Many are they who rise up against me. What would that be? Someone rising up against me. Okay, yeah, against this thing is to push back. So which way are you supposed to be going? Again, in this example right here, I was looking at kind of like a river, right? It's flowing, everything's nice, it's just doing what it's supposed to do, right? And then all of a sudden things get thrown in that all of a sudden cause things to move in different ways and trouble, right? And that of against, then to push back, not allowing that progression to take place, right? They rise up against. How many? Many are they who say, there is no help for him from God. There are many who say, man, God ain't helping you. God ain't for you. Look at this and look at that. And what are they doing? Troubling and against Trying not to let that flow. The flow is heavenward, by the way. Right? And trying to stop that flow from going forward. Or at least trouble it enough that you don't get there easily. Because if you're all troubled, trying to go, what are you not going to be about doing? Making sure anybody else is going. You're going to be too worried about yourself going in order to be able to worry about anybody else going. Yes? And guys, throughout our time here at Pleasant View, and no doubt sometimes by our own follies, but that's what Satan has done to us over and over and used different enemies, different things, and sometimes even our own selves. When we're pushing down the road, really starting to step up, all of a sudden something to try to cause that to slow, if not stop completely. Yes? So, David's advancement here. You realize, okay, yeah, David has had his things. Yes? Far from perfect. Yeah? Yet David's soul and his heart and what he's always been about and what he has continued to be about at this point right here has been about others making the kingdom of God and knowing who God is and his salvation and what he has done. Yes? No man goes every 6 paces and builds an altar to God if you don't want people to know what God's done. Yeah? So, he's dedicated, and that's what he's about. That's really who he is. Yes? The other things that took place, yes, it happened, but that's not who David is. David is always about that continuing forward. And not just for himself, but for all of the people. Not just of Israel, but anyone. If you remember, even in this happening, if you remember, there was a gentleman who comes with all of his family, as well as other people from his nation, and comes to David, hears the message, and even though he knows that David's kingdom is being overthrown, him and all of his kids and everybody walks out of the city with him. And David says, man, go back. They won't hurt you. They won't hurt you. They know that you're exiles, that you're just trying to come in here. And he says, no, man, I'm with you. Yeah? But what is Absalom being used for? See, and notice again, guys, how many times David does this? That he's dealing with a situation or an issue. Notice how he doesn't make it about the person or even people. Now, he'll say that there are these people. He will call them what they are, that they are enemies. He will say these different things, but he doesn't make it personal in that sense like, oh, Absalom is. No, it's the enemies. Yes? And guys, truthfully, what are the enemies that work? What are the enemies? Okay, those who are against God, but who are, give me some. Not too long ago, guys, we had a list of a few. Because really what's behind every single one of the enemies, and while it's many, there's really just these few things that are really working at it. Jay, you were and Tracy, I think, were back there saying?
Yeah, there's the beast.
The beast, which is?
You.
Me, mine, I, self. There was?
Yeah, the false prophet.
The false prophet, which is?
World religion.
Okay? Any kind of form of godliness that is not for the living God who has died for our sins and loved us and sent us his only begotten Son. You want to get down to it. Right? So any other form of quote-unquote religion or worship in a false god. Yeah? And those that claim themselves as being true. So a false prophet. Yes? And then
Yeah, Satan.
Satan himself. And Satan, how does he work? He works through others. Others, when you say others, who are the others that he's able to work through?
Vessels absent of the love of God.
Vessels that are already absent of the love of God. Yes? What else does he do? So guys, the way that he usually goes about is as an angel of light. Although being the angel of death. How much of God's words does he know? All of them. Yeah, it doesn't mean he comprehends them. Doesn't mean he understands them, but he knows them. Yeah? Have you ever had anybody, oh no, I don't have to live God because, and then they try to throw out a scripture to try to justify why not to live God? You've never had that done? You furrowed your brow. I've had that 1,000 times over. Well, I don't have to assemble because God says that I can pray in the closet, so therefore I don't have to assemble. What the heck does praying in the closet have to do with the assembly? Really, at the end of the day, they are not connected. They were dealing with two different things completely. The thing about praying in the closet was contrary to those who were trying to receive the praise of men instead of them praising God. So they'd go out in the street corners and burn themselves and sit out there and say holy, holy prayers and everything else. People would walk by and pat them on the back and say that they were doing good for God. So what they wanted was man's praise instead of actually truly just praising God themselves. Yeah? So he tells them, well, then it's better for you just to go in your closet and pray. Because that prayer was never about the boast for oneself. Yeah? Because what is prayer really? Okay, yes, it is. It's communion with God. And there is no prayer without the prayer of thanksgiving. And if there's a true thanksgiving, then where is all thanks for all giving? Because he's the one who's gave. Yeah? So you would notice that all of the worship would all be, right? And so it already shows you that what their prayer was not true prayer. And that's what Jesus was really dealing with right there when he makes that and addresses that, okay? So just so you know. But I've had that thrown out there. I've had other things where, like one of the scriptures there where he's talking about giving. And he says, man, that you give with the gladness of heart, you know, and that he came asking for alms because of those who were being persecuted. And so then they say, oh, well, see, God just says you give what you want to give, so I don't need a tithe. What is the giving? Are you supposed to give what your heart desires? Yes, but does that negate tithing? No. But they'll try to use pieces. And guys, who really is behind that? See, it's not the individual that's saying those things. They were the one who were told those deceiving things. And like Jason said, even though Satan does not understand, he tries to twist those words of God. He did it in the very beginning with Adam and Eve. Yeah? And he does it real sneakily. So like having compassion on those who have heard such things and trying to believe those things. Does that make sense? Have great compassion for them. Because Satan's dang good at being tricky. He is the deceiver from the beginning. He is the liar. I mean, if anybody's good at it, yeah? You know, guys, if he could really deceive in that sense, because, you know, Adam, and I know that he ate willfully, but at the same time, there was so much deceit that was sown in those words that were spoken in that moment right there. And if he could do that to those who were always experiencing God's love, then how easy would it be for us that have already fallen? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, you know, just understand that.
Yes, the beast is what he uses over and over and over.
He's the one who brought it to life, was the Nehemiah 9 guys right there at that point with Adam biting into that fruit. And so he
Connected with the false prophet, everything is used the world, they use scripture, use anything to justify oneself or claim some sort of righteousness
besides Christ, which it is, again, it comes back to that false prophet thing. And then guys brings in, I'm sorry, Christine, you were.
No, when we were talking about how deceptive and how good he is, that it all that came to mind was, you know, the heavenly host. He wasn't the only one that's cast down. Half of the heavenly host here.
Third.
Or,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
third
that's
of
okay.
the heavenly host, you know, who were created to worship God. They were created for that purpose, didn't have that same, well, obviously they had some kind of something that we do because they went for it. You know, but that's what I was thinking when we were talking about the deception.
Yeah, he even deceived them, you know, and they all fell with him. Guys, you know, the other one was what's called the great whore, which is economy. Okay? And guys, you know, this world, what does this world operate on? Economy. And guys, you know, who was the one who said that it would? Really, it was God. He's the one who created economy. Who's the one who created gold and silver and all those things that we value? You know who said that they are items to be valued? God. It was God who created that, you know? And, you know, so guys, you know, economy in and of itself, is it bad? It's really not. See, guys, it's not. See, people say, oh, money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. That's not even what the scripture says. It's the love of it. For that in which you love, you will serve. Therefore, you put nothing before God. For any man who even loves his own daughter more than he loves God is not worthy. And any daughter who loves her mother and father more than she loves God is not worthy. There is no love that should be greater than the love for God. Now, he doesn't say not to love your mother and your father. He doesn't say for parents not to love your children. Right? But to love more than? Does David love his children? But who's always going to still be number one? No matter what David had walked through, at the end of the day, who was still going to be number one? Even when David fails and falls on his face and commits every kind of heinous act and sin that could ever be imagined, who still yet is where David comes back to? You know, who was it that David bowed down to? Who was it that David prayed for that forgiveness? And who was it that granted it? All those were God. I was hoping you'd stay right there hitting it, but you guys got quiet there. It was God all the way through. Yeah? Because, guys, that's our God. Right? But what Satan will try to get you to believe, and what others will always constantly be trying to get you to believe, is that even he is not for you. Am I right? Because look at this, and look at that, and there's this problem, there's that issue, and there's that, Yeah? How many of you have ever had this, where all of a sudden sin will come back up into your mind, and the first thought is, oh my gosh, how could I be saved? Have you ever had that before? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, man. How can I be saved? Who's whispering that? Now, that if you really, it comes from Satan. It is the beast, your conscience, who is trying to play God and judge you, who has already been judged for you and judged you. Jesus was judged for you, and God's already judged him, so that means you're already done, you're already judged. That's why for all of us who believe on him, when that day comes, he will say, come on in, my good and faithful servant. Yeah? Because it was him who was good, and it was him who was faithful. But he is our God. Amen? So while there are many who will say these things, guys, and when you say many, again, we brought up the four right there, the four main. But guys, what is used through that? Again, guys, how many different times I've had people, my own conscience, everything else that all tries to come out and condemn. Point out what's wrong. This, that, and the other. Whatever it is. Always trying to trouble. To cause resistance from that moving forward. Yeah? I want to say it right now. I will. You know what's an interesting thing about water? Have you ever seen something like a beaver dam? You know what the water will do? Is it resistant? Yes. Right? They beaver pack in all kinds of different things to try to make that water stop. You know what the water will do? Sooner or later, it'll work, and it'll work, and it'll work until finally it gets around and goes where it was meant to go. Okay? Doesn't even picture that beaver dams just growing in property. We've got beaver dam problems. Sorry. Yeah, people don't know how big of a problem and what all it really can cause as far as damage-wise goes, guys. Anyways, if I get off on all of that, we'll be stuck on that all night. But the point is, guys, is that, you know what, if we are God, no matter what resistance we try to come against us, we will still continue our path. Because who's God? Yeah? And you know what, guys, sooner or later, God provides those who are for you that will come and remove that resistance. And you have to be a hearer and a believer in order to experience that side. Yeah? Because there are many who just get swallowed up in it and can't hear. Hardened heart because of whatever the resistance was. You know, guys, when Israel walked up to that Jordan, what was that Jordan really? Using this example and this analogy right here, that was one of those dams, something that was trying to block them from continuing to move forward in faith. Yeah? Unfortunately, in that moment right there, on one hand I say unfortunately, for all of those that did not believe that lost their souls. But with that also created many that did believe God. God still used it. And God still accomplished his purpose. And guess what? At the end of the day, the water got right where it needed. Make sense? Hope that's a good analogy. So many who say that there is no help from him in God, for him in God. And then he says, really think about this, guys, because again, we have this all day long. Yeah? So then now let's think about the next part. There's no but with God, but God. Appreciate that sermon, Bro Jason. There's no buts with God. God says, go. But, no, that ain't going to hold no water. Okay? The only buts that ever work is where God butts in. Works. Yeah? So this is one of those moments right here, because then David stops and he says, but God. Yeah? There's all this resistance. Everything's against. They're even trying to, everybody in my ears. Guys, I'm sorry. Job? Do you guys remember Job? How many in here know the story of Job? Anybody need me to refresh the story of Job? Job, man, believes God. Worships God. Had, how many children? 7 kids. I can't remember how many thousand donkeys, camels, this, that, and the other. Had a house for himself, a house for each one of his children. All these different things. I mean, he had it. He had it all. I mean, in that sense. If you want to look at like wealth and prosperity and everything else, he had it. He'd have parties every weekend with his kids, and then every night after the parties, he'd go out and perform a sacrifice just in case he himself or any of his kids had sinned against God. Yeah? And I mean, just the livestock that it would take to have sacrifices every weekend, you kind of get the idea, like this guy was good, right? Like he was flush, okay? So he's good. All of a sudden, Satan comes to God and says, hey, listen, if you will let me touch him, he will curse you. He will not believe. He will turn away from you if you just let me touch him. And God, and basically, he says, Satan comes out and he says, but I can't because you have a hedge around me. And so I can't reach through that. I can't touch him. I can't get through that hedge. So God goes ahead and allows that hedge to fall back so that Satan could touch Job. In that touching of Satan. And I think that's an interesting thing because he says he uses that to touch. He loses his house. All of his kids die. All of his livestock is gone. He loses his own health. He gets boils all over his body. And because of that, cannot sleep, cannot lay down or anything else. He sits on a rock, burns fires at night to stay warm, takes the glass, scrapes his own boils, and puts ashes on them to try to stay healthy. His own wife comes out of the tent at this point, comes out of the tent one day and says, why don't you just curse God and die? And instead of slapping her and beating her, which, I mean, like, I would have wanted to, instead, he comes in and he says, listen, why act or why speak as one of those foolish? And in that time, what that word foolish means is one that was without God, one who didn't believe. Because it was such a foolishness thing not to believe God loving you and giving you his son to take away all your sins. Why wouldn't you want that? You have to be a fool, not want that. Right? And so he's like, man, why are you speaking like one of those foolish women? Yeah? Job's friends come to him. They all say that he's no good and that everything's happened to him is because he's done everything wrong. He's a sinner and so God's not for him. And look at all these things. How can you say that God's for you? And that was his own friends. By the end of the story, Job gets his children back and he gets 7 more children. So he got his children. Everything doubles. So if he had 1,000, he gained 2,000 livestock. His children would be the only thing that you would say did not double in numbers as far as those were alive. Because he had 7, they died, and then he was given 7 more children. Okay? But Job says that God doubled all things. The reason why is because Job looked at all 7 of his children as being in heaven, and the next 7 going to be in heaven, so he had all 14. So he doubled. So in the end of all of it, too, the friends and everybody who was against, that tried to say evil against, they all had to come to Job and ask him to pray for them. because they were wrong and missed it. Yeah? I think David's going through kind of a moment here of kind of like a Job type thing where it seems like just everything's caving in. Everybody's saying. And then he says, but you. Everything else is against, but you. Everybody says, you're not for me, but you. And he says, and you, O Lord, you are a shield for me. Notice the confidence. Everything's trying to resist, everything's trying to trouble, everything's trying to keep that progression from taking place. And he says, wait a minute, no, you, Lord, are my shield. What does a shield do? Protects you. It helps you live through attacks. Yes? And who's going to help you live through every attack that comes? God! They say you're not for me, but you're my shield. You got me covered. They're trying to create these troubles, but you are my protector. You will keep me alive in union. You're my shield. Oh, I have no reason to be happy. I've lost my kingdom. I've lost my children. I've lost my friends. There's no reason to be happy. Oh, wait a minute, I can find one. Because you're my glory. You're what I glory. I need something to be happy about. I'll be happy about you. Yeah? Oh, and I should be depressed, and I should be sad. Because everything has gone wrong. Nope. I'm going to keep my head up high. Why? Because you're the one who's holding my head up. So what he says is, but you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. For I cried to the Lord with my voice, and he heard me from his holy hill. The holy hill is a representation. They would actually literally go on to a hill and perform sacrifices and do certain things. Do you know why that was on that hill? You know what that was a representation of? Does everybody know? Okay, it really was of Jesus and of heaven. Yeah? And guys, at this point, there is no temple. There is not the temple and the inner sanctuaries and all that to represent some of these same things. Yeah? So, up on this hill, a place higher than. Yeah? Where is God? I mean, somebody said it. Okay, everywhere? No, that's not the one I was looking for. Heaven. And the reason why it wasn't is because, like, in that sense, yes, he's God. Yet at the same time, there are scriptures that really make a lot of points out of that this world is set and it's cursed and it's done. And so as far as God having anything really to do with it, he don't. He's in his place, he's in heaven. And so if you're going to get to God, then guess what you got to get to? You got to get to heaven. And how in the heck are you going to get to heaven? Goes to what Katie came out with right there, which was Jesus. Yeah, so in this life, you have to get to Jesus so you can get to heaven. Because that's where God's at. Yeah? Now, what he says is, he says, I prayed, I called out, I cried, and guess what? Even all the way from heaven, God took my call. He heard me. Yeah? Because it was from his holy hill. And holy. Completely perfect. Not lacking anything. There's no place on this world that's completely perfect. But there is heaven. Yeah? So think about that. Think about God being your shield when you're going through trouble. Think about when you feel like you have nothing to celebrate and nothing to be happy about, and think about God's glory. You think you should hang your head, whether it be in shame or sadness or fear or any other thing, you might want to think about who is there to hold your head up. Because if you're going through anything, who can you come to? And who hears the prayers of the righteous? Yeah? So think about it. Really take it to heart. Because these enemies, they're really real, and they are many. But God is really real. He's bigger than many. Yeah? Now, if you guys had just lost everything and been forced out of your own bed and everything else, you have lost all your friends, you've lost it all. You're having to run away to go live in caves again, which you spent a majority of your life, your younger life, doing. And it's all happening all over again. How many of you would be able just to go lay down and just go, just crash out and go to sleep? Congratulations, Jake. Me? No. I'm dead tired today, guys, but I guarantee you when I get done with this class and I go home, there's going to be things in this class that are going to run back through my mind, and I will lay there. And I will not go to sleep. Not just like that. Guys, it was brought up about this kind of blessing that has taken place, or it appears like it is going to take place here for our school and for our kids here in our school. It's beautiful and wonderful. Do I know that God's got it all? I really do. And honestly, I had to have a meeting in this situation. I had to have this big meeting. And I'm going into it with 0. So the worst case scenario is I walk away, which is right where I started at, so really do I have anything to lose? No. I stood up, did not sleep good the night before that. Not that worrying about it or anything like that was going to change anything, and it was weird in the sense that I wasn't scared or worried, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But it was big. And it was even a kind of a level of almost excitement because of what could be. And what it could mean for our different souls and what they might experience concerning our Lord. And the gospel going on, and these young ones growing up in that reality. There was and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was up and awake, and I didn't want to be. And David says, well, all this stuff is going on. I just laid down and fell. It's precious in that sense because that was God's hand that allowed him just to have that rest. And it wasn't rest as in David don't do anything. David don't take care of the people. It wasn't that kind of rest. But it was rest that he didn't. It was peace. It was rest. Yeah? Oh, and by the way, the next morning, he says, I awoke. For the Lord sustained me. What is sustained? Kept. Giving me the strength to. Held up. Held me to. He kept me. He held me. He got me up. He's the one who raised me up. If you wake up tomorrow, guess what? He sustained you. And now, there once was a time that I would be upset that he sustained me for another day. Because I was selfish and didn't consider the reasons why he sustained me another day. Okay? And guys, and again, in the moment, and everything else, it wasn't like I went into it with an evil heart. But I was like, oh man, I'm saved, man, I just want out of here. Because, how many are out there trying to trouble? How many enemies are rising up all the time? And you know what? It's pretty dang fun when all that's real is all your sins are gone. And God loves you. Yeah? And so a heaven where that's all that is real forever and ever and ever? Sounds pretty dang good, doesn't it? So then why is it important, though, to be sustained here day after day after day? For others. And so, guys, there was a point in time in my selfishness, I was like, man, I just want out of here. Because I don't want to have to deal with those who try to trouble. Those who are against. Yeah? Heck, I don't even want to deal with myself, guys. There I'll be perfect, and all the bad stuff will be all burnt away. Yeah? That'd be nice not to have to deal with me. Little yet everyone else. Yeah? But that was selfishness because you know what? If if I'm here another day, then I'm here for a purpose. Because guys, what purpose has all of us been called to? Guys, it's the same purpose that David was called to. It was to make God real and his son real to every person in all of Israel, all of the church. That he'd be more real than ever, that we would kick in the gates of hell and see people delivered. That's the reason. So is the reason then to give him praise for being sustained another day? Yes, there is, because it's another day that God's given for us to be about that purpose. Yeah? It's an opportunity to please him. Yeah, I mean,
Somebody else is going to get here.
Yep.
Somebody else is going to get the opportunity to be saved. They praise.
it is. It's a blessing to be able to have. He says, and you guys, again, David's situation right here, to have another day, to have to deal with, in this situation right here, his own son trying to kill him. That's how most people would look at it. It's not how David was looking at it. It was another opportunity. As long as he was alive, there was hope for his son to be saved. Yeah? There was always hope for others to be saved, as long as that's the way that David looked at it. That's the way we should look at it every day. As long as we're here today, there's hope for somebody to get saved. And I'm not saying that there won't be when you're gone, but don't take it for granted that there will be. The only way to make sure that there will be is if you see it in the days that you're here. Get the job done, then it'll be sustained. Okay. He says, I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people. 10,000 is a legion. Legions. Yeah? Guys, I have no idea the size of Israel and those who had stayed behind. And the warriors and everything else, I have no idea exact numbers. I know that when it talks about that battle that does take place, they do give numbers. But like the total numbers, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, like I have no idea. Because the point is that what do we have to fear? Because if God is your God that will make you lay down at night and also raise you up the next morning, and he's your God over you doing that, then guess what else he's the God over? He's a God over your enemy, and there's tens of thousands. It doesn't matter how big they are, he's bigger. No, it didn't take hardly anything for Absalom's defeat. If you go and you look at it, they all ride out. There was one ambush. Absalom goes running off into that thicket, gets caught in it, and that's it, guys. Well, Joab, it did. Well, pretty much. There was one of the warriors that sees it, goes back, and Joab's like, why didn't you kill him? He was like, because you heard the king said not to. Joab said, okay, rides down there and kills him. Guys, it wasn't like, but the biggest point here is, guys, is I don't care what enemies are out there that exist in this world. How many billions of people that there are in this world, and how many of them Satan might use because they're empty vessels and don't have the love of God. Guess who's greater? And if he can make us lie down and he can make us rise up, if he can save us, then he can save them. If he can make us go to sleep and rise, he can also make anyone lie down and never rise. Yes? So, whatever is needed in those things, who's God over it? And guys, by the way, if David would have died, what would David have? The kingdom of God. So guess what he would have victory over? All of his enemies. Yeah? And by gaining the kingdom back, what did David have? Victory over all of his enemies. No matter which way, because again, in our minds, we want to weigh and measure certain things. If God is our God, no matter what this world says would be, God is still God. And he's still our God, and we still win. Daniel, the lion's den, that's a perfect example right there. When he's taken, you remember he would not bow down and pray to the false prophets. No matter what great horror, no matter what economy could have been given and he could have gained through it, he would not do it. So the enemy comes out and drags him out. And right there in the mouth of all these lions, throws him in there and asks him, do you have anything to say? And he says, well, I'll tell you this, whether the lion's eating you or not today, I want to be delivered from you, my enemy. So he gets thrown down in there, and God shuts their mouths and takes away their nails. And they went from being these ferocious lions to being meow little kids. They're purring. He was probably down there just like cuddled in with them. I have no idea. Yeah? And if you don't know, the end of that story is after a period of time, because the lions would not eat him, then the king recognizes this, goes in there, has him removed, and the gentleman that had him thrown in there throws him in there, and in the moment that he hit the ground, those lions devoured him. And all of his family as well was thrown in. Servants, everyone, they were all underneath that house, underneath that belief, of the same thing as that gentleman, and God took care of all of them. If you guys remember, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I want to get into some of these because these guys are heroes of faith, and I want us to talk about them a little bit greater depth. Actually, go back and read the stories because there's some really cool little things. Going back and reading it again, that last time some of these stories that I heard, guys, I was young. I was like a child young, and there's tons of details that are in there and big spiritually that I've never seen before. And going back into this stuff, guys, and reading it's just been a heck of a lot of fun. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, again, same situation. These guys were not prophets. These guys were not rich. These guys didn't have nothing. They're just people. But they wouldn't do it. So they get taken and going to get thrown in the fiery furnace, which is a representation of what? Hell. And when they opened up the door, the guards immediately were burned to ash. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked on in on their own. Then they're all sitting there watching, and they go, wait a minute, we threw in three. And they said, yeah, we threw in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So well, then who the heck is the fourth person in there walking around with them? Oh my gosh, it looks like it might be the Son of God. Guys, it doesn't matter what enemies come, God is greater than they. Doesn't matter what fires we have to walk through as a body and as a church, man, guys, as long as we continue to plug away, to keep on going forward, man, God's going to bless it. It's going to be okay. It doesn't matter, guys, and don't get me wrong. Anyone that we lose or is lost and dies lost, guys, I am brokenhearted. But at the end of the day, guys, whatever happens with any of that, I'm not in control of. The one thing I am in control of is us going forward. Me going forward. You going forward. We who believe continuing to go forward. That's the only thing that we can do. Yeah, in that sense. Do you understand me? And what I'm saying in that is, guys, is like with David, was he crushed over his son? But who was still going to be number one? Yeah? And he was not going to turn from that no matter what. Brokenhearted? Did he want his sons to believe? Yes. And daughter? Daughters, probably by the time. Yeah? And guys, and don't get me wrong, he got to see some of that take place. But I'm sure for each and every one of us, we want to see it all. Wouldn't we? But that ain't for us. For us, is if we believe, just to continue. Yes? And know that he's got us. So he finishes that up with those who have set themselves against me, and they're all around. He says, so arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. And then he gives an illustration here that I thought just blew me away. He says, for you have struck all my enemies on the cheekbone. What's the cheekbone? You struck him so good that you've broken out the teeth. The description that he gives is a knockout blow. You knocked the living tar out of him. And it's amazing to me. He says, Lord, come to my aid. Arise, like move on my behalf. Yes? Move on my behalf. Save me. You are my God. Oh my God. And then he says that as if it needs to happen. Yes? And he's asking for God to do it. And then realize how he speaks this next line. For you have struck all my enemies on the cheekbone. Now, he's not just talking about that in the past tense. He's talking about this is the way it is. have struck all my enemies on the cheekbone. You have broken the teeth of the ungodly. What are the teeth used for? Biting, chewing, devouring, ripping, tearing. But guess what? Have you ever met a dog that lost all their teeth? You know what they're good for? Taking out the crease out of your pants. It is a joke. Hot, moisture, and pressing takes creases out. I get it. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back to this in just a minute. Remind me about the dog with no teeth, okay? Broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs to. Salvation, deliverance, rescue from the destruction. Who has it? If it belongs to somebody, how does things end up belonging to somebody? They create it. They make it. They buy it. They can inherit it. Well, if they steal it, then it's really not ever considered truthfully theirs in that sense, because it was a stolen good. Now, Satan, you could say, stole us away. Or you can look at it like Adam just flat out sold us away. I look at it more of the sold. And then guess who bought? And did he steal? Yes, he stole. But we were never his to begin with. So God just took back what was his. And it was his the whole entire time. Yeah? It belongs to him. He owns it. It's his. You want salvation? I'm asking you, do you want salvation? Yeah. Then guess who has it for you? Guess who owns it? Then who do you need to seek to have it? Yeah? It's his. Oh, my salvation. No, it ain't yours. I'm going to earn it. No, you can't. It's his. It belongs to him. My works, I don't care about your works. It's his. It belongs to him. He owns it, lock, stock, and barrel, and it'll never change. It'll always be his. It's his salvation. Salvation belongs to the Lord. You want somebody else to be saved? Then who do they need to get to? Who needs to be brought to them and they brought to? So then who needs to mediate? We do. We have them. They still don't. But who's going to bring the two warring parties together? Yeah? But they have teeth. What teeth? Young dog, take the grease on the pens. For your blessing, to be blessed, send blood out, remember no more. Your blessing is upon your people. Think about it. Take it in. Really think about it. Really consider this. And it's God's, he has it. You're God's, he has you. Yeah? May you guys love the Lord for his deliverance and for his salvation. I wish I could remember the name of this comedian.
Gabriel.
No, not somebody present day, buddy. Back in the 90s or so. And the gentleman, according to his own profession, spent a period of his time just living for Satan and being controlled by Satan and worshiping Satan and the things of Satan. And then he got saved. He got delivered. And he became a evangelist, but a comedian. Comedian evangelist. We ended up grabbing one of his video tape recordings. For those of you who don't know what that is, Google it. I'm sure there's still pictures in the archives. And you would take this cassette and you would push it into a machine that was a box. And then you would walk up to it and push buttons. That wasn't it. But anyways, guys, I'm sorry, joke. I'm sitting there looking at some of the kids, and some of the kids were looking at me. So, anyways, okay, I'm sorry. Anyways, I'm pretty sure everyone in here does really know what one is. But anyways, guys, we had that, and there was a line in it that was just hilarious. And what he talked about having this dog, this old hound. And it was a great hound, and I mean protector, right? I mean, like, if anybody tried to come to that house, I mean, those teeth and everything else, right? And you know, so the dog ended up getting old. Yeah? And so the dog, what he said was, instead of the dog going, the dog started going, and he said, you know, that wouldn't scare off anything. Like, if anything came around, all you hear is, you know? He said if a burglar was trying to break in and stepped inside and hear, he'd be like, oh my gosh, what I stepped in. You know, he wouldn't be scared of a dog, you know, or something like that. And he's like, you know, that dog was still, the mentality of him was still the same. So he'd come up and he'd bite on you, and he was like, and what he would do is take out the crease in the pants of the burglar. That's all he was about to do. So I'm sorry, but in that moment when that came up and out, I was there again. And Mike Warnke was his name. Mike Warnke. And anyways, that whole entire skit that he did on that thing, and particularly, guys, and I mean some beautiful, beautiful things about our God. And one of them was about his own children and his grandchildren. And he said, you know, what's the most beautiful thing is when I walk into my grandchildren, he says, my little babies, they run up to me. And they say, Papa, hold me. He said, they don't come to me saying it like, oh, I hope that you will. They don't do it with fear. They just do it with the happiest of heart. And basically, the point of that part was, is, guys, every single one of us needs to know who our daddy is. And with confidence, be able to go to him at any point in time and say, Papa, hold me. Yeah? And know that he will, with the greatest love, pick us up and hold us. That he's got it. No matter what enemies we come up against, no matter what things try to come, he's got it. Yeah? So guys, I love you all. Hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night. Remember who our God is. Yeah? No matter what things we have to go through, what struggles, no matter what enemies come, no matter what they say, anything else, guys, remember who our God is and keep on marching forward. Yeah? And in the end, guys, we will be there with you. Yes? And then we will be held forever. And we are now. Only now we have to live by faith, but then it will be. But until then, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm hoping he's got some pretty big arms. Like me personally, guys, I used to be able to hold all three. I try to pick up Mackay or Kanoa and put them in my truck because my truck is kind of high, and so in the morning sometimes I try to give them a little lift. You say old age, I don't want to put it on old age. They're getting big. They're heavier than what they once were. They're bigger than what they once were. And what used to be easy for me, I don't find it as easy no more. But you know what? For God, He ain't got no problems with that. No matter how heavy your burden is, and He wants you to deliver from it. He's the one who can carry it. And by the way, He did. All the way to heaven. Paid for it in full. He rose victorious. And guys, let's live in His victory. Let's be about that victory. Remember who our shield is. Yeah? Remember that shield is to keep you alive. Alive means unity. And He's what keeps that. Unity with Him. No matter what fiery darts Satan tries to spew and throw. Yes? Love you all. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night. Hope it was a good class.